Hey there, friends. Today let's take a look at the Generation X Epic Collection, Volume 1, Back to School. So this should be a pretty quick video because I haven't actually read the content in this book. I've never read Generation X. This is a series that sort of, came out just a couple years after I started collecting comics as a kid, and it was a series that I was interested in and always wanted to read, but never got around to it. And also, I didn't have enough money as a kid to collect that many books. I could really only afford 4 titles a month. So sadly, Generation X didn't make the cut. But I'm really happy now that, like, 30 years later, I finally get a chance to read this stuff. So let's take a look at this book. So I can't really speak about the stories, but I can talk about the build of this book, actually. We'll go over that first. So, beautiful cover. This is the cover to issue 1 of Generation X. That's what the spine looks like. And that's what we get on the back. In terms of paper quality, it's not bad, actually. I like it. I'm pleasantly surprised by this Epic collection because I've been a bit disappointed with some of the Epic collections that have come out over the past few years, definitely the past couple years. They've gone to much thinner paper. Like it's almost like paper, like tissue paper thin, like in the recent X Factor Epic Collection Volume 1 that was reprinted earlier this year, I think sometime in February or March. That paper was so thin, anytime you could see white on the pages, it would just you'd see the art on the other side. And actually, let me hold on, I'll go grab that right now and we'll take a look at that one. All right, so here it is. Here's the old, the X Factor Genesis and Apocalypse. This is Volume 1 of the Epic Collection. This is the reprint. Came out earlier this year. And like the paper quality in this one is quite thin. So here's a good page. So I don't know if you can see it, but so here's there's a section here that's just mostly yellow, like a really light yellow, so almost white. And I don't know if you can tell from the camera, but you can make out the word balloon on the other side of this page. And that's probably largely because there's a lot of black over here, so it just comes right through the page. And again, same thing here. There's a lot of white over here around this blast of energy, and I can see the art on the other side. Same thing with this bit of yellow here, and in the white of Iron Man's trail. Like it's terrible. Like the paper in this one is so thin. This book feels pretty flimsy as well because of how thin the paper is. And there is a definite shine to these pages. So they're glossy, which is not really my thing. So this is one of the ones that I've been disappointed in. But back to Generation X. The paper here, it's nicer. It's a little thicker. It's just thick enough that you're not really seeing what's on the other side of this. And it's a lot more matte than in the X Factor one and in a lot of the other Epic collections that have been coming out lately. You know, one of the reasons I fell in love with Epic collections, this format, was back in the early days, they were printed on 100% matte paper that was nice and thick. And it was, for me, it was the closest approximation to reading the actual comics themselves, because they're reprinting older books, older material, and that stuff was typically on newsprint And so I feel like the artwork and the colors back then, they were designed for newsprint, and they should be printed on paper that is of that kind of matte quality. So paper quality in this one is surprisingly good. And this book, it's a thick one. It's hefty and it's sturdy. It's got some weight to it, and I feel like it's put together pretty nicely. Interestingly, this one is printed at the Salisco printer in Canada, and so is the X Factor one I just showed you. So that just goes to show the kind of discrepancy that we've been seeing with the Epic Collection line recently. It's just like, even with the same printer, you get this huge variation in the quality of the build quality of the book. And one thing I can say about the content is that the artwork in here is fantastic. It is top-notch start to finish. You've got Joe Madureira, Chris Bachalo, Andy Kubert, Roger Cruz. I saw a Tom Grummett issue in here, somewhere in the back here. And yeah, like you've got, so here's a Joe Mad cover. And yeah, this issue is all Joe Madureira, and this is sort of like that in-between state before he fully realized, at least to me, this is how I'm seeing it, before he fully realized that style that he's known for, like the heavy manga and anime influence. I mean, you can see it here with the big eyes here on Jean Grey and Storm, but it still has some of that typical 90s comic book art style, that heavy Jim Lee influence, like in a lot of the little details, the hatching. That's not stuff that you saw a lot of later on in Joe Madureira's artwork. Like here, this feels more like what he was doing before he started transitioning to that very strong anime influence artwork. But this feels close, like this drawing of Gambit feels a little bit closer to the style that he would eventually become very famous for. So it's cool. You get to just, it's really neat when you read these X-Men books, because there's a lot of these artists had long runs on them, and you can see how their art developed. It's pretty cool. And then we have Andy Kubert, and I love Andy Kubert's art, especially in the 90s on his X-Men stuff and on stuff like Kazar. I still love Andy Kubert's art. He's just a phenomenal artist, but something about his work in the 90s is just really appealing to me. I don't know if it's nostalgia or what, but there's just so much energy in his drawings, and he packs so much detail into every single page, into every single thing that he draws. And it's fantastic. It's just so much fun to look at. And I still love his art today. He's still amazing, but something about the 90s work. Maybe it's just that raw energy. More Joe Madureira. So yeah, this feels like more like that Joe Mad's normal, like the style that he eventually develops. So it's interesting. It kind of like wavers between the two. It's like that in-between state. It's pretty neat. And more Andy Kubert, which is fantastic. And then of course we get to Generation X #1, and we see Chris Bachalo's art. And I don't know how early on in Chris Bachalo's career this is. I know this is the book that really put him on the map, but I don't know how much other comic work he's done before this. I know maybe one Vertigo book, could be more, but it's amazing. Like his artwork is so polished here already. Like it's so fully formed, not just in the drawings itself, but like the layouts, the storytelling. It's really, really nice. and it's only gotten better with time. It's really cool. Like this, Joe Mad, Andy Cooper, Chris Bichello. You've got just top tier talent, high caliber artists working on this book, and start to finish in this epic collection, all you see is beautiful art. And who else do we have here? Right, we've got Roger Cruz. Let's see if we can find some Roger Cruz stuff. Here, this should be Roger Cruz. Looks like his art. Yes, Roger Cruz. So, yeah, I really liked Roger Cruz when I was a kid. And his stuff is still nice today. It still looks great. It's really neat. Here we've got Chris Alexander. I'm not familiar with his work at all. Very, very 90s. And this is probably more Cruz. Probably, maybe. Yeah, Cruz. Oh, and over here we got Tom Grummett. Pretty neat. And the other thing is, Mark Buckingham inks a lot of these issues. So Mark Buckingham, if you're not familiar with him, was the main artist on Fables. He drew the majority of that series. An incredible penciler and artist in his own right. And here he's inking over a lot of different artists. Here he's linking over Tom Grummett. Here it's really neat because you see a lot of Mark Buckingham. And this actually looks like more Buckingham than Grummett to me. So it's pretty cool watching how different inkers and pencilers, their styles interact, or maybe one sort of overpowers the other a little bit. It's pretty neat. In terms of extras, so this does collect the entire issue of Generation X Collector's Preview, as well as the Ashcan issue. So those two issues were basically all behind the scenes stuff. So you've got a ton of extras in here. Technically not extras, I guess, in terms of the Epic collection, because these are the issues that it's supposed to collect. But there's a lot of behind the scenes and additional information here. You've got this guide to the Xavier School, behind the scenes articles about how this book, this team was put together. You've got character profiles, artist profiles. This one's on Chris Bichello. This is neat, like 30 years of fabulous mutant fashions. That's pretty cool. Yeah, more artist profiles. Richard Starkings, Mark Buckingham. This is cool. I like it. It's a lot of stuff here to read. I like the background material. It's really neat. Oh, cool. And like the sculpting of the figures, how those came to be. That's pretty neat. And here's the Ashcan, which is mostly sort of like a sketchbook with more character profiles. And then we get to what I think are the actual extras for this Epic collection, which is a lot of covers, some swimsuit pinups, again, very, very 90s. The wraparounds for the Phalanx Covenant. Ooh, Marvel trading cards, the 1994 series. Wow, that brings back memories. I didn't collect this series, but I did have 91, 92, and 93. But oh, that's cool. Yeah, so that's it. That's the Generation X Volume 1 Epic Collection, Back to School. So I hope this video was useful for you. I hope you got something out of it. Maybe this gave you a closer look at the book itself and can help you decide if you want to go ahead and purchase this or not. So thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day or a great night wherever you are, and happy reading, my friends.